Okay. All right. Can you talk real quick, Katie? I just want to make sure I can hear you.
Hello, 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 hello.
Awesome. So, my name is Dakota Dravo. I am doing a multicultural foods interview with my good friend Katie. She attends College of DuPage for graphic design and visual communications, and she's also interning with Melodramatic Studios in Chicago and freelancing. So for this interview, it's going to be focused around your like culture and your like and food relation with it. So, what is your culture, Katie?
I am Vietnamese and a quarter Chinese. I was raised Vietnamese Catholic, and my dad is Catholic, and my mom converted from Buddhism.
Okay. Do you eat foods that are indigenous to your culture? And if so, like what are some of your favorite dishes? And can you kind of describe what they are and maybe like the flavors that are encompassed?
Yes, I eat Vietnamese food nearly every day and have eaten it for most of my life. It's one of my favorite cuisines, and growing up eating Vietnamese food has made me an experimental eater with a wide palate. Vietnamese food tends to be very balanced nutritionally and palatably. It satisfies the five fundamental tastes: sour, bitter, sweet, spicy, and salty. Foods and taste will vary by region: North, South, Central, the Mekong Delta, and the tribal influenced Northern and Central Highlands. My family is more Northern influenced, where the climate is colder, so our food is a bit lighter. We eat a lot of seafood like freshwater fish, prawns, squid, shrimp, crab, clams, mussels, and oysters. But due to my family's migration from the north to the south during the war, we also eat central and southern foods as well. The southern climate is much warmer and much more favorable for growing a huge variety of herbs, veggies, and fruits and livestock. So that cuisine tends to be a lot more robust and vibrant and flavorful. We use a lot of garlic, shallots, and fresh herbs like lemongrass, ginger, mint, Vietnamese mint, lemon balm, coriander, Saigon cinnamon, Thai chilies, lime, and Thai basil. Vietnamese cuisine in general doesn't use a lot of oil or dairy, so it's low in sugar and it's mostly gluten free because we're rice based. It's influenced by China, France, Cambodia, and Laos, and it's one of the healthiest cuisines in the world. My favorite dishes are banh mi, which is French influence. It has Vietnamese deli meats, Vietnamese mayo, pate, pickled veggies, which I believe are daikon and carrots, so pickled daikon and carrots, jalapenos and cilantro stuffed between a nice crusty baguette. It encompasses all those five fundamental tastes, and I also really love gai kung in the summer, which you may know as spring roll or summer roll. It's like a salad in a roll with rice, vermicelli noodles, seafood, pork, fresh veggies like cucumber, and herbs wrapped in rice paper and dipped in a sweet fish sauce with Thai chilies or peanut sauce, but I'm allergic, so it's just fish sauce for me. These rolls can be filled with anything, but it just depends on where you get it from and who you're eating it with, or what you want to have in them if you're making them yourself.
Wow, you are making me so hungry. Are there
It's so
any
good.
are there any eating habits or rituals that are kind of like specific to your culture?
Because we're influenced by so many different cultures, it's kind of like a mix of that, and it ties into like religious practices as well, like primarily Buddhism. But I know for me personally, the principle of yin and yang, or in Vietnamese, Dung, is applied by putting together a meal that is balanced for your body. Some ingredients are classified as cooling or heating to the body. For example, duck congee is often eaten with ginger fish sauce. The duck is considered cooling and the ginger is warming, which balances it out. Or if I was running a fever, my mom would make dishes with cooling properties to try to cool down my fever. And it usually makes me feel better each time. I know that can be tied to like maybe Ayurvedic practices as well. Um, but yeah, so in Vietnamese culture, we also use every part of the livestock, all the cuts of meat, most of the innards, and we utilize every part of the veggies and herbs. For example, the leaves of spring onions will be used for topping dishes, and the stalks can be used for cooking or making stock. We will find a way to use everything because our cuisine is affected by our lifestyle. A lot of our people lived in poverty due to long wars and political conflict, so our food is generally inexpensive, but still sought to be nourishing and balanced and not wasteful. Some social rituals I remember engaging in when I was younger, or maybe with a crowd of Vietnamese people nowadays, was to invite or serve the elders first. You wait for everyone to be there before you eat, and it's a sign of respect for your elders. And because I was raised Catholic, my family would often bless our food before we ate it.
Oh, pardon me. See,
My cat's here too.
but okay, that's really awesome. Thank you. What would you say would be like the most important or maybe most celebrated holidays within your culture?
Well, Tết is a very important holiday. It marks the arrival of spring, and it's also known as Vietnamese New Year or Chinese New Year. It's a time for family reunions, and it marks setting aside the troubles and hardships of the past and hope for a better, more abundant year. We pay respects to the graves of our ancestors, clean our houses, and eat special holiday foods like bánh tét or bánh chưng, which are savory, sticky rice cakes stuffed with mung bean and pork and cooked by wrapping it in banana leaves and then boiling it. We also eat caramelized pork belly and duck eggs cooked in coconut juice, which is also one of my favorites. And that's a really important dish because meat was often really expensive in Vietnam. So when you would cook that for your family, it's kind of like spoiling yourself a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And this celebration can last for an entire week. We give lucky money and red envelopes to children and elderly, and the streets are filled with people trying to make as much noise as possible with firecrackers, drums, gongs, and anything to ward off evil spirits. There's also parades with lion and dragon dancing, which is a demonstration of resilience and strength. We decorate our homes with apricot blossoms and peach blossoms, bonsais, marigolds, and chrysanthemums and orchids during this time of year.
That is so beautiful. Oh, I could only imagine Vietnam at that time of year. Wow.
It's the
What,
best.
what are some things that might be considered like respectful when it comes down to like the food culture and stuff like that?
So, what's considered respectful is serving the elders first, and always wait for the elders and the host to begin the meal, and always thank them for the meal. Always compliment the food, even if you're not, even if you're not being honest, you should compliment the food, and always drink the remaining liquid from your soups. In America, that might be considered disrespectful if you held the bowl of soup and drank it, but in Vietnamese culture, it means you're finishing up the meal, nothing's being wasted, and it's a sign that the food is delicious. Um, and drink whenever the host drinks. We are big on cheers, we're big on drinking, and talk a lot at the table because we love to talk and we love to bond.
Okay, awesome. And then like maybe what would be more disrespectful? Like what would really exude disrespect at a dinner maybe?
Definitely eating before your elders is disrespectful. Like I mentioned earlier, you have to invite and serve them first.
Hmm.
Eating before everyone is present is also disrespectful. And you know, there's also regular etiquette too, like not making a mess, sitting over the bowl when you're eating the soup or
Yeah.
whatever you're eating, not double dipping into like shared common bowls, not picking or like eating straight from the common bowls. You want to take from the common bowls and then put it in your own bowl. A lot of Vietnamese people are Buddhist, so another thing is to not stick your chopsticks like a flagpole into your food when you're putting them down. You should put them down laterally because when you're putting them like a flagpole like this, like stabbing the food, this symbolizes incense at a tomb and you're wishing death upon the host's home. So just lay those chopsticks down.
That is very intense. I will make sure to keep that in mind for the next time. Um, are there any foods that you really enjoy from your culture that maybe you just have like a hard time finding in the US, like especially at grocery stores?
Fortunately, Vietnamese cuisine has been on the rise here in the States, especially due to the large influx of Vietnamese refugees during the war and mainstream exposure to the general American public. Here in Chicago, there's a whole Vietnamese neighborhood where you can find so much Vietnamese food and groceries. Some dishes can be hard to find, like the northern dish, bún chả, or caramelized pork meatballs with rice noodles, but you could easily make those at home.
Definitely. Okay. Speaking of home, are there any cultural like dishes or drinks that really evoke like a feeling of home for you? It could be dishes your mom made for you when you were sick or feeling under the weather, or really just any ones that are really personal.
All of the soups, all of the soups. Like congee, which is rice porridge, basically. We all know what pho is, or you might know it as pho. And there's also hủ tiếu, which is like the seafood version of pho. My mom always makes white rice congee for me when I'm sick. And going back to those cooling and warming properties, soups tend to be those super balanced and easy on the stomach foods for when you're sick. And that seems to be the case cross-culturally as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this like information with me. I really do appreciate it. Is there anything you would like others to know and share that we have not included here about your food or about you and your culture?
Don't be afraid to try the smelly foods like fish sauce, prawn sauce, or the foods that are more unusual to you. Usually the smelly stuff might smell bad. Trust me, I think they smell bad too, but they add a really nice flavor to things. Trying different cuts of meat and innards as well. Always be respectful and have an open mind, and that goes for any culture. People around the world lead much different lifestyles outside of our bubbles, and it's important to be mindful about those cultural and social differences. Also, be mindful about how our food is a demonstration of resilience, versatility, and creativity during a time of war and political turmoil. Always appreciate and support the Vietnamese businesses and families that were forced to flee and build their lives here in the US. Listen to their stories and invite your family and friends to join you for meals. A lot of us are still living in poverty and just need to be supported, feel welcomed, and to have their journeys recognized. Vietnamese people are very welcoming and very caring, despite their loudness and rambunctiousness. We're just super lively and we just love sharing our culture with other people.
Well, again, thank you so much, Katie, for sharing all this knowledge. Oh my gosh, I'm so hungry after hearing about all of this.
Come over, I'll make it for you.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. Again, thank you, and I will talk to you soon. I really appreciate you doing this interview today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.